Good evening. The Community Commission on Police Oversight meeting for September 11, 2023 will come to order. My name is Mary Dito Swinton, the chair. Let us begin our meeting by acknowledging that today marks a significant and solemn anniversary in our nation's history. We remember the tragic events that unfolded 22 years ago when our country experienced a series of devastating terrorist attacks at the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and in Somerset County, Pennsylvania. The events of September 11, 2021 left a lasting mark on our nation, that taking lives of nearly 3,000 innocent people and forever altering the course of our history. It was a day that tested the strength and resilience of our people, and it revealed the extraordinary courage and selflessness of our first responders and countless individuals who rushed to aid their fellow citizens. As we gather here today to conduct our business, let us take a moment to reflect on the lives lost and the sacrifices made on that day. I urge you to not only remember the spirit of unity and resilience that emerged in the aftermath of the attacks, as Americans came together to support one another, because that was real, but we should also remember the Islamophobia and hatred that followed the attacks. Muslim communities continue to be the target of hate, bullying, and discrimination as a result of the stereotypes that were perpetuated in the years following the 9/11 attacks. In honor of the victims, survivors, and the people around the world who were affected by the attacks of September 11, 2001, let us observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Welcome to everyone who's joined us this evening in person and via the live stream. This meeting is public and subject to Minnesota open meeting law. To facilitate record keeping and to be sure that everyone can hear and knows who is speaking, I ask that commissioners use a microphone to comment or ask questions, and that you state your name before speaking. And I'm also told, if you look at your speaker deck, if there's a picture of a conference table still on it, you'll just need to press the little person icon and it will go away and will allow your microphone to come on. But if you're not speaking, please leave your microphone off. Thank you. Item number 1, roll call. Will the roll please be called so we can verify a quorum for the meeting?
Yes. Chair Dito Swinton.
Present.
Vice Chair Reeves.
Present.
Commissioner Awed. Commissioner Clement.
Present.
Commissioner Gurian Sherman.
Present.
Commissioner Lohr. Commissioner Newman. Commissioner Olson. Commissioner Peterson. Commissioner Shamfield.
Present.
Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Sturm.
Present.
Commissioner Verpaal. Commissioner Welly.
Present.
And Commissioner Williams Johnson.
Present.
Thank you. Quorum is met.
Oops, my mic wasn't on. 1, 2, 3. We have 11 commissioners present. Thank you for calling the roll. The agenda for today's meeting is before us. Is there a motion? Commissioner Reeves. Vice Chair Reeves.
Thank you, Chair. So I have 2 amendments to the agenda that I'd like to bring forward. The first one is on the screen here under discussion number 7, CCPO training and department update. That is not on the online agenda. So I would like to amend the agenda so that the director can present his report. And so that for the record, since it's not on the online agenda and it is here present in person, that we amend the agenda to include it.
Thank you. There's an motion to amend the agenda to include Item 7 that we see, CCPO training and department update with the guest speaker, Director John Jefferson, Office of Police Conduct Review. We got a lot of acronyms, I forgot for a second. Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Thank you, the motion's been second.
And can I get the name of the person who second?
Wally, sorry.
Thank you. We have a motion from Vice Chair Reeves, and it has been second. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Gurry and Sherman.
Thank you. I'm for the motion. I'm just confused on, my understanding is that is on the online agenda. So it is to correct an agenda that doesn't have it?
That's correct. My understanding that it wasn't on an agenda that was presented to the public, so I want to make sure we just have it further correct.
I see. Thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
Is there any, is it on the online agenda? Is somebody?
The online agenda is posted right there, so it is not on the online agenda.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion or are there questions about the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to add what we see up here is item 7, CCPO training and department update to the agenda, please raise your hands. Thank you. You may lower your hands. All those opposed? Thank you. The motion to add item 7, CCPO training and department update to the agenda has been adopted. Commissioner Reeves, you had a second motion.
Yes, I would like to add time limits. We had discussed at our previous meeting to have time limits on our agenda items. And so the proposed agenda, I would like to have item 1, which is roll call, 2 minutes. Item 2, 5 minutes. Item 3, which is adoption of the agenda, minutes, 2 minutes. Item 4, 2 minutes. Item 5, 5 minutes. Item 6, 20 minutes. Item 7, 20 minutes. Item 8, 10 minutes. Item 9 on the agenda already has a time frame of 20 minutes. And then item 10, 5 minutes. This has been presented to the commissioners as well as on the back table.
Thank you, Commissioner Reeves. We've received a motion to add the reference time limits to the agenda. Is there a second?
I second it. Williams Johnson seconds the motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to add the list of times that are noted on the handout to the agenda. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Gurry and Sherman.
I don't oppose the motion. I just think that the minutes, if we're going to have minutes to each item, it should be on the agenda, so it's much easier to see.
Thank you. And I agree. They were on the agenda that I submitted to be posted, but they, for whatever reason, didn't make it. And so the second best thing I could do is to print them out and have a copy for everybody.
Thank you.
And we will just try to get them on the posted agenda next time as well. Is there any other Commissioner Shanfield?
Just a quick question, trying to check my math. That leaves us 25 minutes at the end. Is that right, for public comment?
Thereabout.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adding these time limits to the agenda as presented, please raise your hand. All those opposed, oh my goodness. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. You may lower your hands. All those opposed, please raise your hands. The motion is adopted. And if you will excuse me, I'm going to have to ask someone to pass me one of those little slips of paper. Thank you. Thank you so much. We can't keep time if I don't have the times up here. Commissioner Reeves, this is a surprise request, but may I ask that you Or was somebody, Ms. Watts, did you say you were keeping time? You didn't say that. I made that up? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Reeves, would you be our timekeeper? It's kind of hard to facilitate and keep time at the same time, so thank you. You said yes, right? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any other motions to amend the agenda? Commissioner Gurry and Sherman.
Yes, I'm making my motion to have public comment at the beginning of the agenda. I think the,
Thank you. We're going to stop with just the motion. You can give your reasoning afterward. No,
Vice Chair Reeves was allowed to give her reasoning. I'm going to give mine. It says in the consent decree under paragraph 337 for Community Oversight Commission, quote, "The city will maintain a Community Oversight Commission to provide meaningful public participatory, independent oversight of the MPD by, at a minimum, hosting regularly scheduled meetings with comments from the public. Having comments at the end of the meeting is not sufficient when we are in a state of urgency, given we are under a consent decree and we've had another scathing finding from the United States Department of Justice. The city and this commission should have a vested interest in the public's opinion on what we are doing and should take the course that is most inclusive of public comment. Instead, we are constantly putting obstacles up for public participation. And given the decisions that were made from the last meeting to this meeting without public knowledge, without even the commissioners having being present, it is even more imperative that we show and not just talk about meaningful participation and engagement of the public.
thank you. Is there a second for this motion?
Sturm, second.
Thank you. The motion to add public comment at the beginning of the agenda has been moved and second. Is there any additional debate, discussion, or questions?
Will we be Williams Johnson, will we be limiting the amount of time that we're going to have public comments because,
That is not in the motion.
okay. I really want to.
Thank
that
you.
in.
We'll vote in a second. Thank you. Is there any other discussion, comments? Yes, Commissioner Gurry and Sherman.
Could we find out how many have signed up for public comment this evening? Eight on the list. What we've done in the past is 2 minutes, so we're talking about 15 minutes. I'm sorry? Seven. So we're still talking at about 15 minutes.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of moving public comment to the beginning of the agenda, please raise your, did I say yes, in favor? Please raise your hands. Thank you. You may lower your hands. All those opposed, please raise your hands.
Six are opposed and 3 are for the motion.
Okay, thank you. I just had like how many are?
That was 6. You can raise your hand again if
Yeah.
you feel like I miscounted.
Let's,
but
just for clarity's sake, please, which one are you not certain about?
are you saying there was 4 for,
I
can you
think there
guys
were
make
4
the-
in favor. Let's, just for clarity's sake, please raise your hands if you're in favor of the motion.
Oh, I didn't-
That
okay.
is 4, thank you. All those opposed, please raise your hands.
So 5, okay.
Keep your hands up, please. Okay,
So
I see
6.
6.
Yeah.
Thank you. The motion to add public comment to the beginning of the agenda is not adopted. Is there Is there a motion to approve the agenda with the 2 amendments that we have made?
Motion to approve the amended agenda, please.
Second.
Thanks. It's been moved and second to approve the agenda with the 2 amendments, and those would be adding, I don't know how to get the agenda back up there, but the two amendments were to add number 7, which is the CCPO update from Director Jefferson, and the second one was to add these time limits that you all have on these little sheets. All right, all those in favor of the agenda with those 2 amendments, please raise your hands. Raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I see 9. Thank you. You may lower your hands. All those opposed, please raise your hands. I see 1. Thank you. You may lower your hand. The motion to approve the agenda is adopted. I'm not sure why I keep having these little blips up here, but okay, thank you. Item 3 on the agenda is acceptance of the minutes from August 7th, 2023. Is there a motion regarding the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner Reeves with a second from Commissioner Smith to approve the minutes from the August 7th, 2023 CCPO meeting. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please raise your hands. I show 10. Thank you. You may lower your hands. All those opposed, please raise your hands. I see 0, and the motion to approve the August 7th, 2023 minutes is adopted. Thank you very much. Item 4 on the agenda is an introduction of city staff. So using a microphone, will each staff member please introduce yourself by giving your name and your position?
Hello, my name is Shanice Watts, and I work with the Civil Rights Department as a program assistant and also clerking for the CCPO.
Lily Hastings. I'm a case investigator with the Office of Police Conduct Review.
Lisa Hill, I am the intake supervisor.
John Jefferson, Director of OPCR.
Good evening. My name is Casey Carl. I am the city clerk.
I'm Joel Fussy with the City Attorney's Office.
Thank you very much. Number 5 is review of meeting norms. And the purpose of these meeting norms is to help commissioners maintain a productive and a respectful meeting environment. And we are reviewing these. You should see them on the back of my little chair report. We are reviewing these before each meeting as a reminder so that we can do the work that this commission was established to do in a way that respects our resources of time and talent as well as the resources of the city and the wards that we represent. Number 1, meeting materials will be shared on time. Number 2, suggested agenda items will be shared in advance of meetings. Number 3, read any shared materials prior to meeting. Number 4, participate in discussion. Number 5, ask for understanding. And side note, this should not be used as an opportunity to ask questions to prove our own points, to shame, or to otherwise devalue someone else's opinion. Number 6, implement time limits on presentations, discussions, etc. So thank you for approving the time limits for tonight's meeting, and it's now a duty of all of us, as not just Vice Chair Reeves, to keep us abiding by these time limits. Number 7, respect the opinion of other commissioners, and I will say that scolding, making faulty assumptions, raising our voices, and I include myself in this too, and making accusatory statements about other commissioners is not a way to show respect. Number 8, abide by decisions of the commission. Number 9, avoid personal comments. Refer to my comments on respecting other commissioners. Avoid personal comments. Number 10, speak one at a time and when recognized. Number 11, be concise. Don't use 1,000 words if 100 would do. Number 12, notify the chair when a meeting or training absence is necessary. And I want to thank the commissioners, in case you're watching online, for letting me know that you were not going to be able to be here this evening. Okay, on to discussion. Number 6. Yes, Commissioner Goring-Sherman.
I think there's just a typo on number 8, abide by decisions of the commission. It's
Yes, there
plural,
is.
and it should be singular.
That's correct, thank you. We'll still be able to understand the spirit of it, but yes, that is a typo. Number 6, on our agenda is a presentation about the CCPO organizational structure and city email addresses, and our guest speaker is Casey Carl, Minneapolis City Clerk, I will ask to let us know how he would like to handle questions during his presentation. Yes, I'm moving.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and to the members of the commission, thank you for having me this evening. As I said, my name is Casey Carr. I have the privilege of serving as city clerk for the city of Minneapolis. Was a part of the team internally that drafted the ordinance creating the Police Conduct Oversight Commission, so happy to be before you again. I was here to swear in all the members of the organizational meeting. Not quite sure what you would like me to cover, so I think probably the best way for me to provide the best information to you is to respond to very specific questions you might have about your organizational structure. I won't presume to know more than you do or your staff about how you're organized, but happy to respond to specific questions and or concerns that the body may have about those issues.
If I could get us started, I think the thing that many of us are most concerned about is at our last meeting, we went through the process of voting on recommendations on committees, and then we picked self-selected committee membership with the intent of having a meeting that eventually I think was held August 28th. But the purpose of the meeting was to elect a chair for each of these committees, and before we could get to the meeting date, we're informed that number 1, we could not have subcommittees because it was not allowed by our ordinance, our establishing ordinance, and number 2, we could have work groups, and that it would be the responsibility of the chairman, me, to decide to one, either lead the work group or decide on another leader. And so that has caused evidently some consternation and disappointment, upset, whatever the word you want to use. But if we could start there, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So generally what I'll say is that within the sphere of government, and I'll ask our attorney, Mr. Fussy, to correct me whenever I'm wrong or off point, there is a general legal principle that says bodies have only that authority they are given. So your ordinance that creates your body is like your constitution. That is the city council and the mayor creating you and giving you whatever authority they've decided you shall have. So if it's in your ordinance, you clearly have that authority. If it's not in your ordinance, you clearly don't. The principle here is that authority has to be given. It can't be assumed. So do you have the authority to create committees? I brought the ordinance that creates this body. I don't see anywhere in there that it says you have the authority to create committees. Could you create committees? Yes. Make your business case to the mayor and the council that create you and say we need committees. We need committees that do these functions, meet this often. And so this body has the power to request that authority. It has not been given that authority. So absent the authority, you can't presume that you have authority that's not been delegated to you. In terms of working groups that are not formal committees that could include a majority or more of a quorum, There is nothing that would prevent a group of commissioners that constitute less than a quorum of this body from meeting. So I'll call those working groups for lack of a better term. You can call them what you will. Informal groups of commissioners that do not constitute a quorum or more certainly can get together. Those then are not subject to the open meeting law requiring notice, an agenda, aspects that are typically associated with a formal meeting, like this meeting tonight. I'll jump ahead and presume that another question along that line is going to be, hey, what does that mean for public access? This is a group that is very much under the public eye. There are, as witnessed by the gallery here tonight, lots of folks who represent different parts of the community who are very interested in your work. I heard earlier a reference to the state consent decree under which this body is operating very as effectively and efficiently as you can to get those sort of systems of public oversight in place. So if you were to have a working group that isn't necessarily a quorum or more and therefore wouldn't require notice, does that mean that you can't tell the public about those meetings? No, it doesn't mean you can't tell them. It means you aren't required to provide the notice. It means you aren't required to provide an agenda. It does not mean that you couldn't meet in this very room and that you couldn't open it up to the public. It does mean, though, that you wouldn't be able to have a quorum or more of members, right? Because then you would be in violation of that open meeting law. You'd have to then stop that gathering and say, now we have to provide a notice. So that generally will prescribe what you could do absent formal committees being created, and what that would entail in terms of noticing and meetings and things like that. And you can certainly require your professional staff to help you put that together. The other piece is, does the chair, I'm not quite sure what the title is, I'm going to go with chair unless you correct me, does the chair have the power to sort of create those working groups? Sure, to the extent that the body does not object. Your presiding officer is the first amongst a body of equals. This is a body of equals. The chair is vested with a little bit more administrative authority, if you will, not power, in order to help the body do its work. So the chair and the vice chair, as an extension of the chair, have those authorities that you give to them to help you, the body, do their work. If you find it helpful to give to the chair and the vice chair that ability to say, hey, let's have a working group, who would be interested? As long as it's not a quorum, who signs up for that? And then to deal with the logistics of calling together that gathering of the work group. So I think I've addressed your points, Madam Chair. If I've not, please correct me or tell me what I've missed. Otherwise, I'm happy to respond to other questions or concerns.
I will yield to I have more questions, but I will wait for everyone else to ask theirs.
Certainly. Are there questions from the members at large?
Williams Johnson, so for a working group, we cannot have 8 commissioners, otherwise it would be considered a quorum. Is that what I'm understanding?
Let me clarify, because I'm not certain. What is your quorum? Is it 8? So you can't have 8 or more. You could have 7 or less.
All right.
I'll repeat your question.
Assuming that we would notice a meeting of a working group that has 8 or more people and make it open to the public, would that be right?
Absolutely. That would simply be a meeting of this entire body, potentially, for the purpose of whatever you put in the notice. It could be the subject matter of, we want to examine what this program or project or recommended policy could be, and we're going to meet informally. We're going to suspend the general rules we have for our formal meetings so that we can, discuss and act informally without the necessity of formal motions and seconds and those kinds of, I'll call them parliamentary procedures. It allows you to work informally together. If you notice them as meetings of the body, then ostensibly every member of this commission could come to a working group, because it would be a formal meeting that's noticed to the public. So it just matters on how the body wishes to do that.
Without a microphone, can I just speak up one more time? I would just offer, I respect that this has been carefully considered, that you found no implied authority for the commission to establish committees. I think it's really hamstringing our body, and it's very unfortunate. I think there's very important work we're all very anxious to get busy doing, we would do it much more effectively if we had committees. I think it would be fair to imply that authority and allow us to get on with the work. I understand the different interpretation has emerged, but I would just wish to pass on to the city attorney's office and to the mayor's office and to the council that we are then hamstrung. This is unnecessarily restraining our work, and I think that's a shame.
Thank you for that. And if you go back and look at our minutes from last month, that was how we thought we could move forward, and that's why we presented it last time. So I think it would be helpful for you to explain how we would go about requesting the authority. I mean, like, logistically, what does that look like?
Certainly. So, Madam Chair, and to all the commissioners, I would say, as you are now a few months into this process, I think that's a communication through your professional staff back to the mayor and the council that says, Dear Mayor and Council, as we organize, we find the need for a system of standing committees that include 1, name, 2, name, the purpose of which would be the following: to meet on an ongoing basis. The purpose of a committee presupposes these are permanent, right? So if what the body is saying is we need permanent standing committees that are going to be noticed to the public, they're going to be always held, that's why you need to get the council's authority. The council and the mayor appointed all of you and said this entire scope of work is for all of you. So to the extent that you create committees, of course, that decision-making authority can't be delegated down to those committees. Everything has to come back to this body anyways. So if you feel hamstrung, then you should ask for and make a business case for why you need standing committees. And they can consider that and act on it.
Commissioner Olson, I have a little different perspective that arose a little bit from the governance subcommittee that we appointed last time with 3 members. It occurred to me that if we had a committee that is itself subject to the Open Public Meetings Law, none of us could have a conversation without first noticing it and you know, having it in public, because 2 of us is a quorum of that committee. And I started to think that through further. How big a committee and how formal does it need to be before we can actually sit down and work, like have drafts of documents? The governance committee was supposed to come up with rules for the commission, and it just seemed really hard to do if we couldn't have some working groups, you know, working on documents, sharing comments on a document, and doing some work before bringing that to a public meeting where the public can then, you know, observe and comment on our work. But it's really hard to do if your committees are themselves subject to the Open Public Meetings Act.
Commissioner Olson, I think you've hit on a key point for why working groups can be perhaps another venue to think. I'm not here to tell you yes or no that you need a permanent standing committee on governance. Only this body can decide that. I would question the need for a permanent, ongoing governance committee of this body. Project yourself down a decade, 2 decades. Are you still going to need a governance committee to think about the body's rules? Hopefully at that point they're well established, they've been used, they've been tried, they work. If they need to be amended, this body, which has control of those rules, could easily consider an amendment. If you needed to create another working group in another decade to look at rules, you could. So I would encourage you to think about permanent committees to be things that are going to relate to your permanent ongoing work. And I don't have any suggestions in that way, only that, as you just said, the smaller your committees, the harder it will be to, you know, operate. The larger your committees, if everybody on the committee, on the commission is a committee, right, a committee of the whole, you have to get quorum for that. So there's a balance to be determined about how hard it is to get a quorum, what kind of work is going to be in an ongoing nature that would be better done by a subset versus the entire body. And there may be issues that will come before this body on a regular basis. If you look to the predecessor body, the PCOC, the Police Conduct Oversight Commission, they had 2 I believe it was 2, am I correct on that, Mr. Fussy? I think they had 2 standing committees. So, you know, it's something to consider.
Just trying to cover my bases here. Given that we did official acts at the last meeting and those official acts were undone by, it appears to be ad hoc fiat, what assurances does the commission have that anything it does going forward cannot simply be undone by city staff because they say so? And we're not working under statutory authority here. We're working under ad hoc advisory opinions by people who have, say, cultural authority because they're from the city, and we all just feel second to the city staff. But we don't, right now, we have no assurances that anything we do, no matter how we do it procedurally, has any lasting power whatsoever.
Commissioner, I think I would say to that, first look to your ordinance and the actual duties, or what does it describe it as, the functions or powers of this committee. It's required duties. Those are the things you have the ability to do. Your staff are here to help you do those things, and I would in particular expect that your attorney, who's assigned to help you, can certainly give advice on, are we within our authority or not within our authority? Where's that line? I don't attend these meetings regularly, but I do sort of have a touch to all of the boards and commissions with the city enterprise. I am happy to come to any of your meetings and give you whatever thoughtful advice I can give you on what you can and can't do or should or shouldn't do within your delegated authority. On the matter of committees, it's clearly not in your ordinance. If you want them, go tell the mayor and the council you have a business case for them and ask for them. And I can, I'm happy to work with the staff, if that's the direction the body wants, to put that in the form of a formal request to the council.
Hello, this is Commissioner Melissa Newman. I am just wanting to suggest that we do not call it a committee, just call it what it is, a work group, and allow it to see what it's going to do. I don't want to send any letters to the mayor. I don't want to draft any documentation. I think that's just another extension of a distraction right now. If towards the end we deem that these working groups do something positive for the outcome of the overview, then yes, indeed, let's draft this letter collectively together for them to implement it in the next session, because some of us only have 1 year, like myself. Some have 2 years, and I'm ready to get to work. And I think this is just another level of distraction, and we should be focusing on something else. It's a work group, not a committee.
You brought up the, they're called the powers of the commission, but you brought up the powers of the commission, and I actually do have it's one question. So one of the powers of the commission is to, I'm having another blip, but one is to receive proposed changes to policies, procedures, on there. How do we go about receiving those? Who should I be reaching out to ask for any policies so that we can review and make analysis and provide it with the public? And the other along the lines, a lot that kind of goes with that is that another thing that we have been told that we may do is, well, I lost that too, but there is an item on the commission that talks about having input on the performance review of the police chief. And so how do we go about finding out even when that process starts and what our input can be and how to give that input?
I'm going to take a stab at some answers to you, Madam Chair. I'm going to call on my colleagues over on the staff table for their input, because I don't know that I have the definitive answers, but I'll make a stab and somebody tell me I'm on or off. In terms of the powers that are set forth here, I've got them in front of me, if you have them in front of you. I think they're fairly broadly worded and give you a lot of authority within these different areas. To the extent that you need any interpretation of what those powers are or how they apply and can be used, in several cases here it says, ask the city attorney. So the city attorney attends every single one of your meetings. Call on the city attorney in terms of what is or isn't within your scope or within your jurisdiction, so to speak. Two, in terms of that specific power, which is input on the performance evaluation of the chief of police, I would suggest that through your professional staff, Director Jefferson over here, that you request from the mayor, who is both the appointing authority and the supervisor, the police chief, what kind of process the mayor would like for you to fulfill that power, that duty. And the mayor can certainly then tell you, here's how I would like to take your input. Put it to me in the form of a report. I'll come and see you at a meeting. We'll call a special meeting where I can come and talk to you. I don't know. Okay. But I think that that's something you can ask the mayor to clarify, and you can certainly do that through your professional staff. I don't know that anyone here on the body has to do that. I think it's actually best if the body were to say, we would like clarification from the mayor on how we fulfill this specific power. I saw it here, so I'm going to refer to it. It's contribute to the annual performance review of the chief of police, number 6, under powers. How do we fulfill that power? And tell us how we should do it. Mr. Jefferson, Director Jefferson, am I misspeaking? Is that? Yep, okay. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. I'm
sorry.
It seems like we're out of time. However, there is a second half to our purpose for inviting you, and that is to address the commissioner's email addresses. So if I might, if there is any concern or disagreement from the commission to let, thank you. Casey, I don't want to call you by your first name, Mr.
Wait.
To let Casey,
I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
Well, you're asking us to terminate
I wasn't
an important
even finished with
discussion.
my question.
Not
So
all the
if you could
commissioners
wait
have
until
had a
you
right
are,
to speak,
if
and I
you
want
are,
to make a
if
motion
you would wait until
that
you
we
are
extend this
recognized,
discussion.
if
This
you
is
would wait until
outrageous.
you are
You didn't even let her
recognized, you
finish.
will have an opportunity to do that. I'm in the middle of a statement.
Well, you just asked if there's disagreement.
And I
disagree.
had not finished making my statement. Thank you. You will be recognized. I'm asking if the commission would allow the city clerk to continue his presentation and give us information about email addresses that are provided to the commission. Is there any comment?
Yes. Are we extending discussions so that every commissioner has an opportunity to address questions and concerns, because not all of us have?
There has been time when I've looked around and no one has raised their hand. So if you have a question, please ask it.
I would love to ask it. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you being here. I have in front of me a email from August 15th, 2022, that was sent out by Council President Andrea Jenkins. It was sent to you, Mr. Carl, and it outlined priorities for aligning commissions. And it had particular priorities for the police review conduct, and it did mention the need for that, and that this body would be a test case for reforms. Do you recall that particular email or that discussion that was underway?
Vaguely, it was tied to a related but separate proposal currently underway in front of the council, which is administrative reforms for all city boards and commissions.
So in the email, it says from President Jenkins, having consulted the city attorney's office on this point, it's my understanding that the work of the PCFP, which was our predecessor, is what is truly critical to the work of the function of police conduct oversight. And you had said when you began your discussion today that you were part of providing support to the council. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So at the time, right after this, in August of 2022, the ordinance for this body was being deliberated. It was passed in December. At any time, did you provide advice to the city council that in passing 8 enumerated powers that we had a lot on our plate, and that did you advise the council that you should have authorizing language for committees?
No.
And so would you consider that to be a failure of providing your support to the city council? Because
No.
now, a year later, after the discussion of this being a priority, we are in the middle of haranguing over committees. So you could have provided support to say to the city council, look, you have 8 enumerated powers. They are very significant, including, finding patterns and practices of police abuse. Surely you took into account that we could not possibly handle all of those powers in a 2-hour monthly meeting. But you never once said to the city council, with something that was so urgent and of high priority, you should have authorizing language for the committees.
No.
Okay,
It's for this body to decide how it wants to organize. And as I said at the beginning, if this body feels it needs committees, it can ask the council to give it that authority.
But you're the city clerk. You're the one that was supposed to be providing support. Between December and today, other than what happened in between this meeting, so between December of 2022 and then April of 2023, when this body was implemented, and our meeting in August, did you provide any insights about committees? What was it that out of the blue, between our last meeting and this meeting, that you finally discovered that there was no authority for committees? What was it that prompted you to give that advice after the meeting in August and not any time prior to that?
I was requested by the staff from the Civil Rights Department to help them understand if this body could create committees. I was not asked at any time that in the timeline that you've outlined, Commissioner, for my opinion or anything else about the structure of this body from council members or from staff. And so I can't presuppose how the body may wish to organize itself. It is presumably actually possible for this body, all of you together, to do the work of this body. There's nothing that says you're limited to a monthly meeting. It is possible this body may wish to conduct all of its business and meet once per week. I'm not here to say that's how you should. I'm not here to say that's how you shouldn't. It's for this body to determine. And if you would need committees to do your work, as I have said a few times, you have the ability to make that request, to propose what those committees would be, and to have those put into your ordinance.
Madam Chair, if I may.
I'm not finished.
Wait, 2
Wait,
points.
no, I'm not
Wait,
finished.
wait,
I get
excuse
to
me.
finish. I'm sorry.
We have an agenda that was passed.
Yes, we do, but
Wait.
I'm not finished.
We had an
So,
agenda, excuse me.
Mr. Carl, you
We had an
talked
agenda
about
that was passed, and
that
so I
the
would ask,
working
wait.
groups, I'm sorry,
No,
you're
Commissioner
interrupting
Gurria
me.
Sherman, this is not your personal standing point.
I didn't indicate that I was
If we
What
could
I'm
please
asking you
have
is,
order.
what I'm asking you
Excuse
is,
me.
what I'm asking you is,
If we could please have order.
I would like to
I'm
pass a
sorry,
motion to
I am
extend
not
debate
authorizing to be
per Robert's Rules of
interrupted.
Orders.
Sorry.
I'm asking to extend debate so that she can ask her question. This is not proper.
I am asking a question.
No, wait, excuse me.
You cut
This is
me
not
off before
proper
I could
to
get back
ask
to my next
additional
question.
questions.
Commissioner,
We passed an agenda.
This is outrageous.
Commissioners.
I understand why I'm being cut off. My voice in particular, and I want to
would
get
hope you
into
understand
that.
that
So,
our voice
no, I
continues
want
to
to
be
get
cut off.
into that.
So what I would like to say is,
excuse
all I'm
me.
Commissioners.
asking is that we
Mr.
extend the
Carl,
agenda.
I have another question.
Excuse me.
You had talked
May I
about
speak?
the working groups can meet
Co-
as informal
Commissioners.
groups. Do you
We have an
agree
agenda that was
the
passed. I'm just
powers-
asking us to follow the proper
when we are
Robert's Rules of
talking
Orders
about
to
the
extend
powers
debate.
of the ordinance, that is formal work of the committee. So when we are talking about executing the powers under the ordinance, that is formal work, not informal work. So when we get together as working groups, we are not getting together as an informal group. We are getting together as a formal group to discuss powers that are enumerated under the powers in the committee. So it really is just a subterfuge to get rid of committees which have compliance for open meetings and to create working groups, which then gave all of a sudden the chair the authority to not recognize the vote that was taken, appointing herself chair, appointing the other chair to these working groups, making sure that people were ousted from committees on the basis of this quorum, So I find it very interesting that you specifically said if we meet as an informal group. When we're meeting as these working groups, we are not meeting informally. We are meeting formally, and we are under the auspices of the Minnesota Open Meeting Law, and we violated them when we met in August. Would you comment, please?
Is that the end of your statement, Commissioner Gurry Sherman?
Excuse me?
Have you finished your statement?
I finished that particular statement.
Okay, thank you. You will need to be recognized if you have another question to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. What I'm asking is, continued debate is fine, but we are not under Robert's Rules of Order. So because we passed an agenda item to have 20 minutes, we need to extend debate by a motion of this body. So you can have your opinion, you can have your time, but we do need to follow Robert's Rules of Orders. And because you asked 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 questions and went well beyond the 20 minutes, I'm just asking that we extend time so that we have it proper. That's all I was asking. So I ask that you also respect the norms that we passed. I was just trying to say, to give you additional time to speak, that we actually passed a motion to have that time in addition, because we passed an agenda. Thank you.
Hearing that, is there a formal motion to extend this presentation and are you suggesting an additional period?
I would ask for additional 5 minutes so that people can get their questions asked.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Reeves and seconded that we allow an additional 5 minutes to finish this presentation. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Shanfield.
Commissioner Shanfield, just a quick question about quorums. I'm sorry if I should already know the answer to this, but in a group of 7, what is a quorum? What would a quorum be? Well, you're saying if it's a committee, so it's half plus 1, is that right?
I'm sorry, are we in the middle of a vote, or did you want me to ask a question
Yeah.
about quorum?
Is your
That was
question?
a mathematical question for you.
Okay.
I think that's a question to ask if you get the debate extended.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Thank you. Is there any discussion further?
So,
Yes. Here.
ideally, I would like to probably try to get this going. So I would have no problems with the 5-minute extension, but I would probably try to actually limit it to the city clerk answering the questions if he actually got the email thing situated for us. So instead of going into interrogations and cross-examinations, I think we should just try to ask the questions and move on. Thank you.
I'm hearing an amendment to the motion to restrict the last 5-minute discussion to questions regarding email addresses. Is that your intent?
Second.
Is that your intent? Okay. Okay, it's been second. All those in favor of that?
Can we have discussion on that?
Yes, I apologize, I forgot. So
Yes.
there's a motion and a second to allow 5 minutes, a 5-minute extension to the presentation from the city clerk, but limit it to discussion regarding email addresses, and that is the amendment that we are voting on. We're not voting on the actual will we extend for 5 minutes. It's just for the amendment to limit that discussion to email address. Yes, is there discussion? Questions?
Commissioner Shanfield, I understand the discussion part now. If we then don't get to other questions, should we email them to you or directly to the city clerk? If I just have technical questions that we don't have time for here, that's fine, but where should those go?
I believe they should just go to the city clerk because I don't think I can answer the questions. So, and I would prefer not to answer it. I would prefer to have an answer from someone whose answer is less disputable than mine might be. Is there any other discussion or questions? Commissioner Gurry Sherman, I apologize. I couldn't see your hand if it was raised before.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. I would also like to add a friendly amendment that the next 5 minutes also be allowed to include trainings per the ordinance.
Are you meaning questions for the city clerk regarding trainings?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's.
To make it simple, I can just entertain that as a welcome friendly to my motion.
Thank you.
Just to make it simple.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Alwed has agreed that his motion to amend the original motion to extend for 5 minutes to include questions about email addresses and trainings.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on this amendment to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of amending the original motion to extend discussion or the presentation from the city clerk by 5 minutes and limit it to questions regarding email addresses and training. All those in favor of that amendment to the original motion, please raise your hands. And I can't see, so. Oh, it's everybody. Okay.
Yes.
All those opposed, please raise your hands. Okay. The motion to amend the original motion is adopted. So now the original motion is to extend the presentation time from the city clerk with limitations to only include discussion about email addresses and training. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion to extend this presentation by 5 minutes to include discussion about email addresses and training, raise your hands.
So I have 10.
Thank you. You may lower your hands. Anyone, all those opposed? I don't see any hands, but okay. Thank you for your votes. That motion is adopted. And starting now, we will allow an additional 5 minutes on the presentation. Well, after I finish talking, we will just, after I finish completing the motion, we will allow 5 additional minutes to the presentation from the city clerk. And we are limiting that to discussion about email addresses and training. 5 minutes starts now.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I can't see over here. Commissioner Gurian Sherman.
Thank you. I'd like to ask some questions on training. In Section D of our ordinance, it says mandatory training requirements. And then it repeats that phrase again, and it has the word mandatory and requirements in it twice, which I think signals the urgency of having these trainings. And the ordinance starts with this section, quote, all members shall complete an annual training session that covers the following subjects. 1, police use of force. And then I'm going to skip to number 7, race, equity, inclusion, and belonging anti-racist training. We have yet to be provided those trainings. So I'm asking you whether or not you believe that those trainings have to be provided in an annual training, number 1, and 2, do they need to be provided before we take on our work, both the powers work and also the review panels? Is there anything in here in that ordinance that you can see that that says that we do not have to have these trainings before we begin our substantive work?
What I see through the chair is that you are required annually to have training on these issues. And it lists them 1 through 7, and then 8 is any other relevant training determined by the Civil Rights Department. I can share that as we were creating this body, there was discussion about the potential of bringing in to the city of Minneapolis presenters from, and I'm going to forget the name of the group, the National Association of Civilian Oversight. There you go. NACL. There was discussion about bringing them in and asking them to provide a lot of this training to you. It's mentioned right here in number 6. I'm sorry. And so there was discussion about doing that. I think it would have been potentially advantageous for this body to have had that for a number of just logistical and administrative reasons. I don't think that happened. And so the ordinance requires these trainings to be completed on an annual basis. It does not say it has to be done before you begin your work. It simply says you have to do it once a year.
And just as a follow-up, there is no language that authorizes or gives city staff any leeway when to offer those trainings. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, can you restate your
Yeah,
question?
so there's no authorizing language that says, for instance, it's up to the city staff, particularly OCPR and the Civil Rights Department, that these trainings do not have to be given before the training, that they can make that decision on their own.
I have no comment in terms of that. The plain reading, and the attorney can, weigh in here. The plain reading says that all members, at least annually, must have training covering these points.
Thank you.
Commissioner Reeves.
Thank you, Chair. So is it the understanding that the racial equity and belonging training that Commissioner Gurian Sherman is referring to, that training is not available because we don't have a director in place for the racial equity and belonging department?
Through the chair and to all commissioners, I would say that's probably a very good reason why.
So, yeah, there's no current director of that department, so we don't have the training. But I would like to get to, we have 58 seconds left, so I want to get to the email. So if you could tell the commissioners about the emails, that'd be great, and what our purview is. Thank you.
So emails for this body and for certain other, what I will call decision-making bodies, have been given by the city to those boards and commissions. For example, the Charter Commission, this group. Your predecessor body, the Police Conduct Oversight Commission, PCOC, also had city email accounts for a number of reasons, but I'll state just two. Number one, you are doing official city business, and we believe it's important for you to have official city channels of communication to do that business. We do not think it's appropriate for you to use a personal email address to do that. When we have data practices requests about our boards and commissions, especially those like this body, which are in the eye of the public, it is easier for us to work with established city email accounts to pull that responsive data. If we don't have you in the city's network, we then have to ask you to give us whatever emails you may or may not have.
Thank you, and your time has expired. I will encourage commissioners with additional questions to, is this okay?
Yeah.
To email the city clerk directly, and I will.
Madam Chair, if I can maybe suggest, if there are such questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Let's say within the next week, I'll be happy to compile those questions, put together responses, and through your professional staff, I'll get those back to this body, hopefully in a very timely manner. I'm always available if you have questions. Email me at any time, call. I'm on the 3rd floor. Come see me during business hours. I'm here almost every day. Happy to help this body as it gets started. But if there are questions that are coming from this meeting related to what we discussed tonight, please email me as soon as you can. I'll compile the list of questions, put together answers, and get them back to you as quickly as I can. We can check, but it should be the first name dot last name at minneapolismn.gov. I'll check on the email question. The chair just asked a question about what are the email addresses, and I certainly will double check that with your staff. Traditionally, the typical city email account is a first name, period, a last name at minneapolismn.gov. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just to clarify, the last question I asked was, well, a comment I made was, I don't think that the commissioners have received information on what their email address even is. I did see an email. You did? Okay.
Yeah, I got an email.
Okay, thank you. So never mind. They got it. I didn't see the email. Thank you so much. I hope that we can move forward in continuing to organize the commission and ultimately get started on doing the work that I know that we are all anxious to do. Sorry for the jingling. All right, item 7 on our agenda is a CCPO training and department update from Director Jefferson of the Office of Police Conduct Review.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Just give me a second to get set up here. Can go here. Okay. Okay. All right. Still don't have it on the screen here. Sorry, I'm just trying to wait a little bit on the screen. Okay, there we go. Okay. Just want to bring everyone up to speed on the updates with the OPCR and also CCPO. Some of the questions were already answered by Mr. Casey, but I'll reiterate. Yeah, not a problem. I'm sorry. Do I have to get a little closer? Okay, I apologize. Yes, just want to bring everyone up to speed what we are doing OPCR and bring you up to speed and some of the things that we are trying to push through and happen, not only for OPCR but for the CCPO as well. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, just want to make sure. So we are currently in the process of some new hires. And I'm going to explain each subject matter as we go on. Other things we're going to talk about is the Axon Case Management System, research, case panels, which I'm pretty sure everyone's interested in, NACO, and CCPO training. We're in the process of right now hiring 4 case investigators to be hired, and I mean, actually in the process of, as I speak right now this week, that will help us enhance our investigation skills, investigations, and speed along the process as well. We also are hiring a case manager to oversee our cases. If you're not familiar with what a case manager may do, they're going to oversee the cases, make sure that we're keeping on time with our cases so we can meet the mandate of 180 calendar days. We have also hired 2 BWC analysts. We were down quite a few people for the last few months, and so we finally got 2 BWC analysts hired, and they are currently on board. We are also hiring 2 project coordinators. Yes, ma'am. Yes, thank you. If you don't know what BWC, and I'm just assuming that everyone knew what that was, and I apologize, that's our body-worn camera analysts. And basically what they do is they look at the footage from the police officers that they wear the body camera. So we're able to download that information and look at the body-worn camera. And we're also able to look at the inside the vehicle, there's a camera as well, the MVC. So we're able to load all that information down and to look at evidence that may be concerning to an investigation. We are also hiring 2 project coordinators. This is going to be very essential not only to OPCR, but also to the CCPO, so we can conduct more research. As you well know, you may not know, but research, it takes up a lot of time, a lot of people, and we don't want to pull our investigators to conduct research, so we're looking to enhance our research capabilities by hiring the 2 project coordinators. This is just an overview of what we look at, what we're looking at right now, and as you can see that, just our schematics here, we have 3 pillars of how we're trying to operate, and this is part of our reconstruction of OPCR. The first pillar, if you see, is the OPCR research and audit. headed by our OPCR legal analyst. And we have a project coordinator. That area there is designed to conduct research for, as I stated before, for OPCR and for the CCPO. We're also looking to conduct different types of data analysis that were requested by the city clerk, also by the Hennepin County, and also by the city attorney's office. So that pillar there takes care of that information, provides a resource to conduct those duties. And also to look at policies and procedures to help improve or to shape the MPD. The second pillar is also the bulk of what we're doing is our case investigators. We have a case manager to oversee that. And the last pillar, of course, is our intake manager, where they take in all the complaints via email, via people walking in, taking in that information, and we also have the BWC analysts in that pillar as well. Axon is our new case management system. It's designed to track the cases from start to beginning. And also look at the workflow of the case investigation so we can track where the case investigation is. So if a case investigator, once they receive the information and they start to conduct this investigation, we can see where they are in investigation. And the reason why we want to look at this here is to make sure that we are staying on track with the investigation, that we are meeting the 180-day timeline. Now, just to reiterate, that 180 days is not weekdays, it's 180 calendar days. So we really need to have the resources in order to meet the MDH requirement. With that said, in the case management, we are also able to download information from the BWC evidence, reports, anything that's essential for the case. When Axon was first originated and when we first started working on Axon, it was basically made for the joint supervisors type situation that we had before this agreement. So what we went in and did, and my staff has been working due diligently on this, to streamline this process, to make it where it's for OPCR, so we are receiving the information and not sharing any information. It's just streamlined to us. The information is coming to us. The case investigation is staying with us, and is going straight to the CCPO for the panel review. As I stated before, OPCR research. We have a legal analyst who will lead OPCR in the research and data analysis. We're also, as I stated before, we're hiring 2 project coordinators to enhance our research capabilities, be able to data collect, data analysis, look at research trends, review the Minneapolis Police Department policy and procedure manual as well. So that area, that first pillar, is really going to be very central to the CCPO in conducting research. I think we've already introduced our main legal analyst, Mr. Christopher Mann, to Mara Shanfield, and to let you know that we have those capabilities and we're trying to enhance those capabilities more. So I think research is very intuitive to what you do and what we do as well. You know, you can do case investigations, you can do the discipline, but I think research is pretty much key to the end game of what we're trying to accomplish. These are just some of the things. I'm pretty sure you've seen this before in the past, what has came about through OPCR research and audit. You can look this up online. The high-risk warrants that received national recognition in 2022, MPD involvement in pre-hospital sedation, and also the mental health policy, policing, and co-responder program. That information is online if you want to read more in depth about that information. Case panels. I know everyone's been wondering about case panels. I'm going to be very frank with you on the case panels. My intentions were to get these case panels moving as fast as possible. We want to get these panels going. We are ready. The CCPO is ready, but we are currently waiting on law enforcement personnel to get trained in panels and also to provide us the people that are trained, and so we can move forward with these panels. I'm a little disappointed, and I want to move forward with these panels. I have a meeting set up with the deputy chief that's over this here, because I want to ensure there's something being done about this. We need to move forward with the panels, and he promised that he will have a meeting with me, and we're going to sit down and to discuss this. I just think it's imperative that we get the panels underway. NACO, our National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. The next conference is November 12th through the 16th in Chicago, Illinois. People wonder, okay, what does NACO do? Mr. Casey did explain a little bit about it, but NACO is advocacy for civilian oversight, training of oversight professionals, defining and defending oversight with the state of the field research and data. This year, we have 4 OPCR staff personnel attending, the CCPO chairperson and the CCPO vice chairperson. And hopefully next year, we'll have more funding to send more people as well. Now, I'm going to do some research. There might be a way there where people can be involved in this and online, and I'm going to do a little bit more research on that. And go ahead, sir.
Do we have an institutional membership or organizational membership?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
If someone wanted to attend and pay the organizational rate on their own, they could do that?
I believe so, but I will double check with you, but we do have that membership.
Okay.
And I'll double check for you.
I'll just say I was able to go to that conference in 2019 and thought it was fantastic.
Right.
So really worth people's time.
And I hope that we can get everyone to attend in the future. It's just based on budget for us, but it'd be great for everyone to attend. I think it's very, very good for everyone to get that type of insight, especially if you're going to sit on this type of commission. CCPO training. This is just some of the training we've taken in the past. I think, has everyone had the ethics and conflict interest of training? If you haven't, let me know. I will send that back out to you online. The Minnesota Government Data Practices, Open Meeting Law, we all had that. Minnesota Public Employment Labor Relations Act. The Race, Equity, and Inclusion. I know that there have been some questions about that, but as stated before, earlier in this meeting, there is no director, and I cannot give that training if there's no one there to give the training. And the Public Employee Labor Relations. Yes, I know we need to get that done as well. Use of force training. That was another question that I brought up too with the deputy chief who oversees that, and I'm having a meeting with him this week because I think that still is, a good training to have as well. He promised me that, we're going to discuss that and get that on the agenda. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Can you have the deck emailed to commissioners, and can it be included?
Have the what again?
Your presentation.
Yes, I'll have this, email to all the commissioners.
Because there were links on it that might be useful.
Yeah, I think those, I'm sorry.
And that's okay. And the second part is, can this, in the agenda, can the presentation be linked in, not the agenda, the minutes, so that it's available?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll ensure that it is.
Okay, thank you. That's my question.
But I just want to, rehash the panel. I want to get the panels moving. I think that's very essential. I think that's part of your work that you should be doing. And I am a little disappointed myself that it's not going. And my job is to make sure that we push that and get that going, because I think that's very essential to the CCPO. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So what I would say is the racial equity and inclusion training, I know the director is coming soon. So would you be able to give us an update when he thinks he may be, or she may be able to give us that training? Because I know it's of importance. It's been named several times in this body that we just know when it might be coming. 'Cause
Right.
like she said, some of us are only on here for a year and just want to make sure that we're following the process. And because that's the only one that isn't available yet, because there's no one there, if you could just give us an update of when it may
Sure.
come in the future. And also, it is unfortunate that the panels are not able to be done yet.
Right.
I'm hopeful that the Minneapolis Police Department and whomever is in charge of making sure that they train their staff so that we can get going, do it expeditiously so that we don't have any issues about curtailing the work of this body and that we move forward.
I completely concur with that, what you just said, and I think my duty to this week is to get that going and to push it, because I think it's imperative to the work that you need to do. Sir?
Commissioner Sturm, I know it's beyond your direct power. You have to work diplomatically with your colleagues. Is there a reason why we don't need training and the police need training?
No, they need training as well. They have to go through training as well, the same training that are you referring to the panels, correct?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like,
Yes, they
we're
have to.
told that we can proceed with best efforts with what we have.
Yes, we've
So what
been
do the
trained.
police need that they can't proceed with best efforts with what they have?
Did I have a question? Did you have a question in there? I didn't. If I missed it.
Is there some, do we know what specific training they need?
The same training that we have to go through. And my understanding is that they have an embedded attorney that's going to train them. That has not happened yet. My thing is to make sure that that does happen as quickly as possible so we can move forward with the panels. Ms. Newman.
Hi, this is Melissa Newman. Just regarding, since there's a lot of positions that need to be filled and onboarding and training for those people, and we still don't have a date. Regarding the trainings and the mandatory practices, with this new police use force, is there an opportunity for us to see some of the old training methods so we're able to identify what is new with the new requirements from the chief of police, and then we're able to feel out any other additional training that may be needed within this time frame, so we're utilizing our time wisely.
Right.
And not have to be waiting, unfortunately, for these people to be in position for training. I mean, whoever's going to train them, are they able to at least help us get the ball rolling at the same time? And not necessarily prolong this for months and months, because, as I spoke up earlier, and like myself, I'm only on this committee for 1 year.
Right.
And by the time we see maybe an actual file, it could be next year.
Well, that's what I don't want to happen, and I agree with you. And I'm going to look into that. If there is something that we can provide in regards to what you just spoke of, I'm going to try to get that done. My thing is to have that meeting with that person this week and to see where we are and how we can get this accomplished. Because like I stated before, and I'll say it again, it's just imperative that we get the panels moving and get them going.
For sure. I mean, if it's videos or literature, whatever it is.
Right.
Police use of force.
Sure.
I mean, we can start with that.
Yep.
If we don't have those other ideas, maybe there's documentation that speaks on, the race, equity, inclusion of that we can read out and, prepare ourselves for it, for when they do come and feel like we're doing something.
No, those are great ideas, and I'm going to note that and look into that this week.
Thank you.
Ms. Sherman.
Yes, I'd like to follow up on that. I think these are great points. When I was at the MPD listening sessions, I asked Chief O'Hara and Lieutenant Wilkes if the listening sessions, particularly on use of force, were to substitute for the training that we are to get on police use of force, and they emphatically said no. But then the chief said that part of the problem in delivering the police use of force training is that it would have to go through the MDHR consent decree process, and it would have to be approved. And the point I raised to him that others have pointed out to me is that if we review disciplinary action or misconduct action in a review panel that was before the MDHR consent decree, the police use of force policy that was in effect at that time would be determinative. So whatever's happening in the future, we don't need to, it will not play into past misconduct cases involving police use of force. So why can't we get going on the past cases of police use of force by getting the previous training that was given to our predecessor entities and at least get that backlog going.
Right, and I don't disagree with you at all. Once again, we're waiting on MPD, and my thing is to get them on board this week to ensure that we can move forward. And I don't disagree with you at all. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Do we have any idea what the kind of status of a bottleneck is at this point? Has there been no police discipline going forward for the last 6 months? Or do we know what is happening with discipline?
Right, if there hasn't been any panels, no, there has not been anything going on for 6 months.
I just had another question about the organization. You gave us a lot of detail about new staff that are coming on. So one is, in the flow chart that you gave, there's nothing about the CCPO. I raised this back at our May 16th first meeting, that the flow charts that we're getting, there's no mention of our entity. And you had said at that time that new flow charts were going to be made to include how the CCPO fits into the OCPR. Is that in the works?
Yes, that's in the works, and my apologies that it's not there. And this is constantly changing because of the restructuring. So I've changed the restructure maybe several different times, and so I'm still trying to put the final touches on it. And so as things are happening, I'm finding out that, well, I need to amend it here and in different areas, but I will have that for you.
Great, thank you. And just a quick question, how does all of the new staffing affect the CCPO outside of the training? What's it going to do to get us going more quickly and to keep review panels going?
Well, I think one key part I think is going to be essential for the CCPO is that we have more people able to help you, assist you with research. That's going to be a very integral part because we don't have time to pull investigators to conduct research because we are under a time frame. So my thing is to, create enough people or have enough resources to address any research that either the OPCR has or the CCPO.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
I believe I heard the timer indicating that we have reached the limit of the time for your presentation.
Madam Chair, can I ask one quick question about emails?
Certainly, if it's one quick question.
It's
Yes.
very quick. When can we expect to see all of our emails online so that the public has access to them?
Well, you're issued the emails, correct?
Yes.
Already? So I don't control the emails. That's the city clerk controls that, but I can find out. But we don't control, OPCR, we don't control the emails. I just want to let everyone know now. That's issued from the clerk's office. We don't monitor it. We don't control it or anything like that, or keep up the maintenance, so to speak, on emails. But I can get that information from the city clerk's office because they are the ones who are going to actually monitor and control those type of things.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Director Jefferson.
Get back to the agenda. Can I go here? And we'll get this over. You want to disconnect this here?
It's already connected.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Ready to go. Shanice, give me the help. I lost it completely. Yep.
Is it the
Is it a short? It might be a
Might be the.
Push it in a little more.
I don't know. I think the cord is. Yeah, it's a little delicate.
Item 8 on the agenda, thank you for your report again. Item 8 on the agenda is the chair report. There's no new information on my report, although I know it didn't get posted online. I'm also not sure why about that, but I brought paper copies. So there's nothing for me to actually report this month. But I would like to, I would like to acknowledge some unrest about my having removed one commissioner from a working group. And as I reviewed my handwritten notes and the minutes from last month, I was made aware that there were 2 commissioners who had signed up for 2 what we were calling committees back then, as they are not committees at this time. But looking back at my handwritten notes and the minutes, there was only 1 commissioner who signed up for 2 committees, and because we were bound to not have a quorum, which meant we could only have up to 7 commissioners on each of the working groups, I did make the decision to remove the 1 commissioner from a group who had signed up for multiple working groups. And I want to assure you that I do not have a personal vendetta against anyone. I just made a decision based on numbers. I don't have the bandwidth or the interest to further any kind of personal agendas, and my intent was not to anger, disappoint, or any of those negative emotions anyone. I just wanted to allow Commissioner Reeves to be on the only one work group that she expressed interest in. I removed myself from the work group because the numbers did not add up. But I just want to make it clear, I do not have any sort of personal whatever about anyone. I'm just doing what I said I would try to do when you elected me to be chair, do what's best for the commission. And I hope, and I have stated that I entered this believing that we all had the best interests of the commission in mind, and that is how I will continue to move forward. But I will say that the issue has been resolved because Commissioner Stern has volunteered to give up his place on that work group in question so that the number now is just 7. So that concludes my report. Are there any questions? Yes, Commissioner Gurry and Sherman.
Yeah, so I had sent an email, or I thought I sent an email with a couple dates, but I realized today that I didn't push the send button. So I just wanted to give a couple dates that are coming up on September 18th, on Monday. Minneapolis for Better Police Contract will be presenting its recommendations for the Police Federation contract in front of the city's Policy and Government Oversight Committee. It's not yet confirmed. It's like 90%. We'll know on Wednesday. And then also the city had its first bargaining session with the Police Federation, and that occurred on September 6th. It came up very quickly. There will be another session on September 26th. And with permission, I'd like to send that information to the chair so that can be distributed.
Yes, and I will also ask if you send it to me quickly, I will ask that it be added to the minutes so that it's accessible to the public.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And as the commissioner that was ousted from the committee, let me just say I don't think the process served the interests of the committee. We passed a vote. It should have been honored. If there were problems and new information, it should have been taken up in front of the full committee. We are all equals. We are volunteers. We're putting in a lot of time. I was never consulted. No one was consulted about how we could fix this. I was summarily removed from a committee that was my priority to be on. There were no other factors taken into consideration about balancing strength and weaknesses and skills on these committees. And it goes right to what Commissioner Sturm said, that if we are making decisions and following procedures and norms, and they can be undone in between meetings, This is very startling, and it's not going to do this commission well. We're going to end up steering this commission into the same iceberg that defeated previous independent civilian police review boards. We have to do things differently, and we have to do them better. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, and I would just like to say, I did what I, at that time, and I will own my decision, I did at that time what I thought was best to get this commission to start actually doing something, and waiting until September 11th, in my estimation, to make decisions about how we were going to move forward was not that. So we will just, as adults often do, agree to disagree, but I thank you for your comment. Commissioner Reeves?
Thank you. So I appreciate the work that you're doing, Chair. It is difficult to get this process started when we're a new commission, so I want to thank you for that. But I will say, as someone that was berated by email, that I broke the law and all kinds of disparaging comments because there was a decision made to keep me on the only committee that I asked to be on. To me, we want to make sure that we can move forward. We want to make sure that everyone's included. There was a decision that was made by the clerk's office and follow-up emails about why that decision was made, because we wanted to meet for the committees that we can't have now, but we wanted to meet before the September 11th meeting, which is why that was done. Because if you remember from the last meeting, we discussed meeting before the next meeting, which is why that was done. I just want to say that I'm glad that we were able to get this out in the open and kind of have a discussion. But I would also ask that now that we have access to emails and that we can email each other, that we not berate each other by email and make assumptions about positions without allowing the chair or anyone else to actually give a report as to why things are done. I think it just makes it easier for respectful communication as well as following the norms, that to allow the chair to be able to at least give the report before we start berating why something isn't correct or that people are breaking the law. Oftentimes, people in the community, especially people of color, are told by others what is wrong and what breaking the law, and we're doing things that are not the norm. I would just truly ask that we think and have an open heart when we have these conversations, that we say what was the reason behind it and ask questions per our norms, ask questions for clarification as opposed to disparaging remarks. So I really ask that we not do that, because it's very frustrating to get emails saying that you're breaking the law in a CCPO and a Community Commission on Police Oversight, that we're breaking the law because we're having conversations. So I would ask that we not do that and remind ourselves where our privilege is and how our privilege concerns our conversations, and that we are all doing the best that we can on this committee to do best for each of our community members. Please just have that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move to item 9, which is work group updates, are there any other comments? Okay. Seeing none, well, he's gone, but I was going to say thank you again to the city clerk's office for giving us some clarification about our work groups. It's important for me to state again that I am trying to work within the parameters that I have been given. And I realize that's not going to please everyone all the time, but I'm doing the best I can. So thank you. I'm going to repeat what Commissioner Reeves just said. We're all just doing the best we can. And so yes, the time on the agenda for item 9 is set aside just for any work groups who met in August to give a brief review of any initial plans that they've made. And I don't know what that says. So I'll just, let me start with the community engagement group, and let me just be clear that I have not assigned myself as chair of this group. I have actually asked 2 commissioners and have been turned down so far 2 times for someone to lead the group. So I am currently looking for someone to lead the group. I facilitated our brief discussion because nobody else wanted to do it. So I'm not the lead chair or anything of any work group, nor do I wish to be. I have enough in this current exciting role that I have. But during that community engagement group meeting, we brainstormed ideas of how engagement might look, and just a few of the ideas that were mentioned we're developing some sort of periodic one-pager or newsletter or flyer or whatever we want to call it, which would address various topics and be shared with neighborhood organizations and other community groups. We also talked about having our own listening type sessions in partnership and collaboration with other community groups. And another suggestion was to be sure that we include the youth in all these engagement activities because the children are our future, as that song says. And then per CCPO ordinance, we will conduct at least one community engagement session before the end of the current appointment year, which I verified that that year means the appointment year. So it would go June 1st to May 31st. So anything that says annually for us, that's our year. I am going to share a spreadsheet with the commission to collect names of community organizations or individuals that the community engagement group might collaborate with for these engagements with the public. And that's basically where the community engagement group landed. Would someone with the policy research and recommendations group like to share your discussion?
Yes, happy to. Commissioner Shanfield. In light of the tension that you've all named and talked about, we spent a fair amount of our hour plus sort of trying to understand that a bit better with each other, trying to understand what happened, how did we get here. Several members who are here tonight were in the room as well of the public, so we wanted to make sure that we were sort of doing everything that we could to make sure everyone feels included, and there were only 4 of us at the table, and so we talked predominantly about who was able to go to which of the MPD and DOJ sessions. Not everybody agreed that it was important to disclose which sessions they were going to go to, but those of us who did sort of looked at the schedule together. And then we started talking, Christopher Band was there in the room as well from OPCR, and he offered to do comparative policies to bring that to the commission. And so we said, yes, we would love that. I think that will take some follow-up on my part with him to make sure that that request is clear, that he can look across different cities that have gone through this before and to say, what have they done? What did their manuals include, et cetera. And then the other piece that we talked about, talking about, so going forward in the future, wanting to compile ideas around both what should go in the federal consent decree, as well as sort of taking a deliberate and organized approach to providing input to the police policy manual that's currently being under review. And so, how would we divide that up and so that we could even come back to the larger commission and say, there's enough work for 15 people, but here's our recommendation on how to proceed. So we've got some wheels in motion. Given the confusion of who was supposed to be on the commission, I did not do any follow-up. So with the permission of the chair and the group here, the commission, we can continue.
Thank you for that. And also, those of you who were in the community engagement group, I also did not follow up for the same reasons. So we also have a governance work group that is ad hoc, meaning that they will complete their duty and the committee will dissolve after City Council has approved whatever bylaws or rules that group comes up with. But they did not meet in August because I was informed, and I think that the city clerk also mentioned that there are some new, guidelines or instructions or something regarding commission bylaws that are coming out in mid-September, and so I didn't want the group to meet and start doing something and then be told, no, you need to follow this. So I will send a survey to the members of that group to determine an initial meeting date, but I'd like to wait until we receive that document and at least have a few days to read it and digest it. scrolling through my notes, excuse me. So that, Commissioner, I was about to say, is there any other comment about the work groups? Commissioner Gurry and Sherman.
There's nothing that precludes us from putting online, just like we do for these meetings, the notices and the agenda for these working groups. We have an obligation to engage the public in the way that it's never been done before. And the fact of the matter is, we are making decisions at these work groups. The fact that we will make recommendations that the whole group as a whole, the commission as a whole, will decide on, it doesn't mean that we're not making decisions about what to forward on. And when we do that, we are making decisions. I believe very strongly we're violating the Minnesota open meeting law by not having these noticed and published. We do ourselves a great service in many ways by ensuring that the working groups, the notice is provided, the agendas are provided just like this. What's the big deal? It is simply giving the public the opportunity to come to a meeting. They're not precluded from coming to the work groups just because we don't notice them. People can find out about them and come. So I am making a motion right now that as a matter of policy and procedure, that we make sure that all of the work groups, there are notices for when they meet, where they meet, and what the agenda is.
There's a motion to provide public notice according to Minnesota open meeting law, I'm presuming. Is that correct?
Yes.
For any work group meeting, along with the agendas and whatnot going forward. Is there a second? Commissioner Smith are you seconding?
Yes, I will second.
Okay, you're seconding. Thank you. Is there?
Could I make a comment?
Yes. Well, right after I ask, is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Commissioner Smith.
Yes, I think I would disagree that having the work groups meet without noticing would violate the open meeting law. But I do believe that in the spirit of the open meeting law, and really more importantly in the spirit of transparency of our work, that getting started with these working groups, we should be transparent, we should notice, and they should be accessible to the public and meet in a place like here. So I think I'm excited for the work groups to get working, and I think that transparency is very important.
Thank you. And can I just for information's sake, by the time we got the information that, sorry, you can't have committees, the period to post that information online had passed. And so the only way to keep going forward was to have a working group that doesn't require blah, 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 the agenda and all those things. So and I think we just need to go back to what the original intent of this work setup was to have committees and all those things. And so I don't believe that anyone in here was wanting to have secret meetings or private meetings or non-public meetings. It's just that first one, logistically, it was impossible to provide a notice like an open meeting would be required to have. But I do not disagree with anything that anyone has said. Commissioner Reeves.
Thank you. I do agree with the spirit of the motion to make sure that it is transparent to have, if someone wants to come to a work group and provide some documentation or input, I definitely welcome that. They may have a different perspective that they want to bring forward that we may not know. But I do want to caution, the agenda part is the problem for me, because if it's a working group, you may not know what the agenda is. So unless the agenda says open agenda, discussion could range for anything. So I don't know that part, but I definitely am open to having the meetings open to anyone who wants to come and review them. But I would also want to caution that if we could stop saying that things violate law unless we ask questions if it does or does not. It's concerning because as we're on the police oversight, so when we keep saying that things break the law when we're having discussions, I would ask that the question be asked, does this break the law? Or can we get further clarification instead of making emphatic statements? So I was asked that we do that as part of the commission, whatever we're working on, just ask if it does or not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there, I want to make sure our comments are related to this motion that we have on the floor. Are there comments related to the motion?
Yes,
Commissioner Newman.
That was me.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Either
Oh,
one.
I'm sorry.
I didn't see. Okay. I just wanted to know that if we were going to make the working groups public and if we did not have an agenda, how would we determine the amount of time for public comment? Because and then we wouldn't be able to be productive. I'm willing to host or have meetings that are just exclusively public comment, but getting work done with I just think that it could get, without an agenda or with constant public comment, I think that we would not be able to be productive.
Were you asking? That
Yeah,
was a
I guess
statement.
you're right. I guess I am asking, how much time would they get, would the public get during that meeting? And would it abide by the same thing that we do now?
I think
If I
that
could
would
just-
determine on the creator of the agenda.
And if I could just add to that comment, I think if we have agenda, it would just need to say open agenda if we don't know what we're going to discuss, and then have time for public comment. So that's what I was trying to get to, if I didn't say it clearly, is if we don't know what it is, open agenda or new business, so that there's a spot for it, and then for public comment also.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Newman, and then Commissioner Gurry and Sherman, then thank you, Commissioner Olson. And then Commissioner Alwood.
Yes, this is Melissa Newman. I agree with Commissioner Clement. Also, I also want to piggyback what Commissioner Reeves stated, or excuse me, Vice Chair Reeves stated regarding the public coming and also providing documentation, that if you are going to come as a public person, because I'm a civilian first, that you provide the necessary information, plus include who is writing this and who's providing the information. Because there was verbiage that was passed the last time, and it had my name listed on it. As soon as it was some negative aspects of it, because I didn't want to receive particular people's emails, because it was constantly a constant daily email and things of that were coming, and that I did not want to cloud my mind and space in this space here. So if you're going to put my name on something, state who you are so I can address you accordingly. And if this is going to be a working group, I would like to be able to work. So I personally don't agree that there should be public comment at those particular sessions, because just like the last one, I would prefer to be able to work and interact with you all. They can come and sit in the room, visualize, take note, pass out whatever documents they want to. But there's a place and a time for everything, and I don't believe that is at that time. And I also want to say, for the community class group, that we were trying to see about an opportunity for, in a space that we can open it up to that public comment and have an opportunity for a release of trauma for community members as well. And then also trying to partner with some of these community sessions that the police are having, and find some way where we can be on the common ground, where it's community, because then we have to be able to bridge this gap between community and police. And that's kind of the whole idea and the purpose, of this community work group.
Thank you. I just want to remind us that we have a motion on the floor to provide open meeting access to future work group meetings, which would include agendas. So our next was, I was just trying to remember the order I said. Commissioner Gurry and Sherman.
Thank you. We have Assistant City Attorney here, Mr. Joel Fussy, and I think we could ask the question. I think I'm right in saying the open meeting law does not require a public comment, and we would not have to have them at these work groups. Is that correct?
If I might, Madam Chair and
Yes.
Commissioners, yes, you are correct that these work groups would not be required to have public comment. You certainly could entertain it if you wanted to. I also think it's important for the record to state that I agree with your fellow commissioner. There's specific case law. These working groups would not be subject to the open meeting law, but by all means, you would have every ability to provide notice to the extent that you wish to, and that would be the position of the city attorney.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. And just in terms of agenda, one of the things we discussed at the end of our meeting was what we wanted to see on the next agenda. I think it's very easy to come up with an agenda by sending emails saying, what would you like to see, getting that up and online, and then having a line that says adoption of the agenda so that we are free to change that as commissioners. And third and finally, Director Jefferson came into our work group and said correctly that the public does not have the right to interfere with the work of our group. And so if the public wants to be there and we are not going to have public comment, then we can talk with them informally before and after the meeting, but we do not have to allow public comment. Neither the public comment or the agenda should get in the way of passing this motion.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Olson?
Yes. My big concern is what is a meeting, or, defining what is a meeting, and does it include conversations that we're having or email conversations with particularly a small working group like the Governance Committee. I realized at one point I had an offline humorous conversation with another commissioner that lasted 2 sentences, but it pertained to the work of the committee or the subcommittee, and it was probably a technical violation.
You had humorous conversation about governance issues?
We did.
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, again, these working groups are not subject to the open meeting law. Therefore, if you're having discussions with your fellow working group committee members, whether it's in the working group or outside the working group, would not be a violation of the open meeting law. It's only if you bring in a quorum of this entire body.
And thank you. I really appreciate that. And but my question then is, if this motion is going to restrict meetings, is it as broad as a definition of a meeting in the Open Public Meetings Act, which does it include rolling meetings? Does it include meetings conducted by email? Does it include a common document that we're all commenting on online?
Again, Madam Chair and Commissioners, these meetings or any permutation thereof are not subject to the open meeting law. Any notice you're giving or any public access you're giving is your own decision and is consensual. It's not a requirement. So what you have to worry about is a quorum of this entire body. That's when you would run into open meeting law violations. But that's why these working groups give quite a bit of degree of flexibility. Mm-hmm. You certainly are empowered to work on anything that might funnel up and make recommendations to this entire body, which is empowered to do the actual work. You don't have to comply with open meeting law requirements, but by all means, again, you can provide whatever degree of notice that you want to for the reasons of transparency, but not for reasons of complying with the open meeting law, because it does not apply to these settings.
And so just want to make sure that we're not in this motion saying we are essentially going to comply with or mirror the Open Public Meetings Act, that it would have to be more flexible than that.
Correct. That you might be giving notice that happens to look like what is in the open meeting law, but it is not, you're not forming any bodies that are subject to the open meeting law through these working groups.
Does that answer?
Yes, it answers the question. I still have some tension about it, but.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Alwood?
No, so it raises the question. I'm confused. I thought the commissioner's motion was recommending that we use open meeting laws requirements to hold our working groups. Was that your recommendation in this motion, or?
Well, my motion was simply to provide notice and an agenda.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to say in the way that the open meeting law does, I wasn't saying that all of the open meeting law applies. I was just saying notice of when the meeting is, where it is, and then providing an agenda and putting it on the CCPO website. And access to the public to come. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for clarification of what the intent of the motion is, so well, let me ask first to City Attorney, are work groups able to meet via Zoom?
Yes, these work groups are entirely flexible. They are not subject to any open meeting law requirements. If you wanted to talk on the phone in the parking lot, you could do that. That's one of the upsides of doing work in a non-quorum based system like that, where the only final decisions are made by this body. So to the extent, again, that you're providing public access, it's for reasons of transparency and not for compliance with any legal requirements.
Okay, thank you. So is the intent of the motion to provide notice and agenda for any planned meeting? Or are you saying any spontaneous, well, obviously a spontaneous meeting you couldn't, but if two commissioners have questions about something that another, that one of them did, and they plan next week, we're gonna get on the phone and talk about it, are you asking for those types things, or just in-person meetings of the work groups?
No, I should clarify. No, I'm not asking for that. I'm saying that the working groups, which used to be known as committees, should provide notice of the meeting, access to the meeting, and the agenda. I'm not saying that an informal gathering of 2 or 3 commissioners. I am specifically referring to what would have been provided if we were called committees and what we are now calling working groups. So it's limited to the 3 working groups.
Is Commissioner Reeves?
I know that we're over time, just for clarification. So if the work group, because I wasn't at the 28th meeting, but if the work group decided to meet once per month, that's what Commissioner Gurley and Sherman, you're asking for it to be noticed. But if there was a decision to meet twice per month and that was a change of the people on that committee, that would also be noticed because the committee is now changing the parameters that was set, correct?
Yes, if it would have been noticed as a committee, then, and it's a working group, then it should, what I'm saying is it should be covered. We should simply provide that notice, the access, and the agenda. And I would assume some of these committees will be meeting more at different times of the year, more than once a month, because the work is enormous.
So can I just finish my my comment then?
I'm
now that I get a
sorry,
better
I thought you
understanding?
were finished. I
No,
apologize.
no, it's fine, because we needed clarification on that issue specifically. So, well, that being said, honestly, it's taking quite a bit of time just to get to that point. I think generally the public is served here with less bureaucracy. So I am of the opinion that we really probably go again to this motion, and we move forward with flexibility as our option. Honestly, I think this working group, because by default it's not a committee, should be in the spirit of flexibility. So trying to attach it to have it a little bit more bureaucratic, I think ultimately harms the process itself. So if people don't mind, I really do want the public to probably have those public comments, since we did make it at the end of the whole meeting here. So, yeah, I mean, I honestly don't think it's probably, yeah, worth the fight here. So I just want to just add that sense, because I think the flexibility here is not going to harm anybody.
Thank you. Commissioner Clement, did you have a comment? No. Are there any further comments? Okay. I'm going to try to get this right for the sake of the minutes. There is a motion on the floor which has been seconded that work group meetings that work groups provide notice and agendas to the public for their meetings. Please correct me if that is not the motion. Okay.
I think you got it.
Thank you.
And I also have access as well, was mentioned. Is that correct, for the purpose of the minutes?
That they be noticed and open to the public. Thank you. All right. All those in favor of the motion to provide notice and access to the public for work group meetings, please raise your hands in favor. I see 5.
I see 5 as well.
Thank you. You may lower your hands. Thank you. All those opposed to this motion, please raise your hands.
And I've counted 5.
And that failed to achieve a majority vote, and the motion
What was the vote?
5 to 5.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there any other discussion about the work groups? I'm sorry, just before you say, Going forward, I will ask that work groups provide a written report of, just a summary of what they have discussed in their meetings, whether they have a recommendation or not to the body. And if you obviously have a recommendation, I'd like that to be in the report as well, so we can all see it before the meeting. That will be going forward. And those will be due on the same schedule as recommended agenda items, and that chart is on it's listed on my report. Commissioner Smith.
Madam Chair, when are the next work group meetings?
Those have not been determined. We kind of like pump the brakes on all of the work group stuff because Commissioner Shanfield and I independently decided it was best for us to get some more clarity before we keep moving forward. But those dates can now start to be hashed out. And as I understand, you may email your 7 on your group, because that's not a quorum of the commission, to try to figure out the date. And I will do the same while I simultaneously solicit someone else to lead this community engagement effort. And then we'll also do the same when we get this document for the governance work group to start meeting. So dates are yet to be determined, but you may feverishly get on it starting tonight. Thanks for that question. That's important to know. Okay, if there's no other comments on work group, item 10 on the agenda is new business. Is there any new business to bring forward before the commission? Hearing no new business, the next order of business is the acceptance of public comment, and public comment should be addressed to the commission and not to city staff or guests. And anyone wishing to make a public comment should have signed in. I believe the sign-in was on the back table, but Ms. Watts has it now. Would Vice Chair Reeves also be willing to be a timekeeper for public comment? That's a yes. Thank you, Vice Chair Reeves. Okay, so each person making public comment, just like commissioners were asked to please speak into the microphone. You might have to get kind of close to it, and begin your comment by stating your name and the ward where you reside. And names will be called in the order that they appear on the sign-in sheet. Each speaker is again allowed 2 minutes, and I thank you in advance for adhering to that limit.
Madam Chairperson, just
let it go. Press it.
in regards to keeping the time,
Let it go, it's gonna go.
in regards to keeping the time, Ms. Watts is going to keep the time, 2 minutes.
Commissioner Reeves, is that okay with you? She says 2 thumbs up. Okay. Thank you for that. And so you'll start calling the names now. Thank you.
So I have Howard Dotson.
Mr. Dotson, could you use the other?
And I
Yes.
apologize, there is a mic on that
Yes. Thank you,
podium
sir.
right closer to you. They switched it up so people didn't have to be walking around the room.
Okay. Evening, Commissioners. My name is Howard Dotson. I'm not a resident of Minneapolis, but I'm a child of Camden, born at Minneapolis General. And I just wanted to offer a reframe sometimes, because so many times it's all about criticizing law enforcement. I want to lift up the work of Cedric Alexander and Operation Endeavor, Operation Safe Summer. I've been doing outreach along West Broadway for the last year. It was a wild, wild west last September. We had fentanyl drug dealers. It looked like a flea market. And they had 14 overdoses in one parking lot at Lyndale and Broadway. So often we focus on the gun violence and forget about the drug overdoses and how the fentanyl is an important part of policing. So 86% spike in African American overdoses. Our officers are responding to these overdoses and bringing them to the ERs only to find that there's no psych beds. Only 10% of people with opiate substance use disorder get access to treatment. They're Humpty Dumpty till they die. Humana and Health Partners both got dinged with violating the mental health parity law. So if we want to get the fentanyl drug dealers and that gun violence down, you got to take away the customers. But if they can't get treatment, and if there's not enough supportive housing, then you're going to have a bunch of overdoses and you're going to have a bunch of fentanyl drug dealers bumping up against each other. So I've shared those concerns with Chief O'Hara and Chief Tyner. I want to affirm the work they're doing with the federal government because they got 60 indictments. That's huge. That's going to reduce the fentanyl drug dealing that's creating the gun violence and creating the overdoses.
You're at 2 minutes.
So I want to affirm Chief O'Hara's work and please support him as he goes through this consent decree. I told the New York Times, Chief O'Hara is my hope.
Thank you.
Next, we have James Franklin.
Is everything on? Yes. Oh, okay. I just have a few things I wanted to talk about, and that was just, I witnessed a lot of issues on officers not knowing how to handle medical conditions and mental health. So I think it should be like more like engagement. Like Janae, I think they had like
You have to get a little closer to it. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
So I think they had a group of people where they had some folks that they were like, you know, that would come out and talk to people with like, you know, mental health problems and stuff. But I think there should be like somebody that should be there in every issue, like every engagement with an officer, because obviously like some officers don't know how to handle, and it's been like 6 months since they had any training on anything, any discipline or anything. It's ridiculous. There should always be training. It should always be training every day, day in, day out. There's always issues. There's always issues that need to be situated. But where am I at in my minutes?
You're at 56 seconds.
I think they should expand, yeah, in every issue or an engagement. Okay. Second, are there any seats open on this board right here? No. Okay. Well, I think we need more people on this board that are more ethical and engagement and utilizing like active listening. So I see a few people on the board that are not really engaged and not saying anything on issues. And I think that if they're not going to say anything or do anything, that they should give up that seat to somebody that's more eager. Also, an area for the kids. I want to make sure I say that. Just make an area for the kids when the parents come in and want to share their concerns and everything. Just make sure that there's an area for the kids so that they can be, you know,
You're at 2
occupied.
minutes.
Okay. And then, is there going to be a time for public in the beginning of the groups too? Is that, because this should be like she said, that there's urgency. The public is asking that we need to be heard first. Boom.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Dave Bickinson.
Hello, yes, I'm Dave Becking of Ward 8, and I am the person who handed these to, I hope everybody on the commission got this, because I wanted to be able to give input to the entire commission. 2 of the sheets are handouts from the time we had the working groups, but there were only 7 commissioners there. And of course, this time there's, I believe, 3 commissioners absent, so I still have absolutely no way of reaching this commission as a whole, and from what I understand, it sounds like the emails still aren't up at a place where we can get them. They certainly weren't before this meeting started. This is getting absolutely outrageous that there is no way for the public to give input or engage with a commission that's supposed to have public engagement. Yes, the working groups that you formed definitely violate the open meeting law. I've looked at it very carefully. All groups that have the open meeting law apply, their committees apply. You can't make a committee something other than a committee by simply giving it another name. These committees walk like a committee, they quack like a committee, they are committees, and they are covered by the open meeting law. And on the second page here, I go into much more detail on why that is. And now that it's been voted down to give notice, wow, I mean, it's obviously deliberate that you don't want to know what the public, want the public to know what you're doing. Without notice, the ability to attend means nothing. So that has got to change. I hope you reconsider that vote. That was shocking. The trainings
You are
once
at
per
2
year.
minutes.
I just wanted to say, trainings once per year, it makes no sense to have them at the end of the year for commissioners who have a one-year term.
Thank you.
Next, we have Andrea Solek.
I'm sorry, I think I thought I was checking in.
Okay. Byron Richard. So Chuck Turchick.
Chuck Turchick, Ward 6. First, I have 4 comments. I'll go very, very fast. I thought it was interesting that Casey Carl said, nothing in the ordinance gives you the power to form committees. And then he said, nothing in the ordinance prevents you from forming work groups. So he looked at it in 2 different ways. I don't know, I didn't understand that at all. Second, histories are always selective. Not all the facts are ever presented. But the Ron DeSantis of the world want not to include certain facts that are crucial to understanding present-day circumstances. Similarly, the history of the relationship between Minneapolis civilian oversight bodies and the Civil Rights Department, or the city attorney's office, or the city clerk, or the city council informs and helps us understand current conditions. That relevant history goes back at least 15 years. As you know, the MDHR findings report commented on that history. The CCPO is not stepping into an ahistorical present. So I would urge you to seek out and talk to at least some of the people who were on the last oversight body, the PCOC. Find out why 6 of the 9 members, 3 of them commission chairs, resigned from what city council members proudly described as the most diverse oversight body Minneapolis had ever seen, just as Director Gillespie described this commission at your first meeting. For 4 of them, the reason was basically the same, and a 5th one, though she resigned for a different reason, agreed with those 4. Find out why not one of the 9 applied to be on this CCPO. That never happened before in Minneapolis civilian oversight history. Maybe some of you have done this already. If not, ask the OPCR staff how you might get in touch with those people. Third, I was surprised that neither Chief O'Hara in his presentation at your August meeting, nor any of you in your questions of him, mentioned that the ordinance requires the CCPO to provide analysis and recommendations on new and revised police policies. You have 120 days from July 20th to do that for the 78 policies the department has asked for input on. Today is the 53rd day, leaving 67 days for that huge task. I'll write you an email with my last comment.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have, and excuse me if I say your name wrong, McMewy Gross. Oh, Michelle. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Michelle Gross, and I'm the president of the organization Communities United Against Police Brutality. I've been involved in police accountability issues for over 35 years. I had wanted to be here sooner, but an emergency heart surgery prevented this. However, I have kept close track on what's been happening with the CCPO. In fact, I've been tracking the various versions of civilian oversight in the city of Minneapolis since the days of the Civilian Review Authority. And I served as the chair of the Outcome Subcommittee for the city's redesign of the Civilian Review Authority back in 2001. In other words, I know the history of civilian oversight in this city as well as its failures. I can categorically tell you that all such failures were by design by the city. What scares me is that I see this body going down that same path. The CRA was formed as a result of demand by the community after the police killing of Lloyd Smalley and Lillian Weiss, an elderly couple in their home. The CRA was hamstrung from the start by the city starving it of resources. Still, that wasn't good enough. The city destroyed the CRA because they were too effective at holding police accountable. At one point, they sustained 15% of community complaints that resulted in discipline, and they generally always met and exceeded the national average of 7 to 8%. The city couldn't let that continue, so they developed the OPCR with no input from the community and over many objections. They set it up so that the members of the hearing panels had zero accountability to the community. The public-facing body, the PCOC, did some very good work around policy at the beginning, but once they began to really challenge the city's practices, including the coaching practice, they were dismantled. Next, the City Council devised this very body without any input from the community. People objected strongly. When the city got around to holding hearings on the CCPO, they couldn't even tell us about the nuts and bolts of how it would operate, and they refused to share the ordinance language until it was voted on. This is how you ended up without the power to form committees, because there was no oversight for the actual ordinance language. City staff killed the effectiveness of the PCOC by constantly interfering with their work. I see that happening here already, because you need to be clear. You work for the community, and they work for you. That's how it works. From what I've seen so far, things seem to be upside down, with city staff telling you what you can do and what you cannot do, and refusing to provide you with the training and resources to do your work. It is outrageous, for example, that the OPCR director can tell you not to ask questions of a community member at a working group meeting. Come running into the room and no. That's ridiculous. It is equally outrageous that at 4 months now, you are just now getting emails from the city, and we have no way to know what they are. All of these things are outrageous. And this has to change if you want to be accountable to the community. The city is under one consent decree and will soon be under a second. This method of oversight, in which only 0.49% of community complaints ever see discipline, cannot continue. You are the people who can change it, but you only can do so if you recognize the importance of your role, who you work for, and who works for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Andrew.
Hello. I did some looking into the open meetings laws. One of the documents.
Can we have your name and your ward? She only
Andrew.
had Andrew.
I do not actually live in Minneapolis. I work through here.
Okay, and you
I come here for work. I don't live here.
just Andrew?
So yes.
Okay, thank you.
The Minnesota Supreme Court says the purposes are deeply rooted in the fundamental proposition that a well-informed populace is essential to the vitality of our democratic form of government. Courts interpret the law liberally and in favor of openness. Again, these are not my words. This is the words of the Minnesota Supreme Court. They also say serial meetings in groups of less than a quorum held to avoid open meeting laws may also be in violation depending on the facts of the case. I'm not a lawyer, definitely not your lawyer. I might say maybe check with a few other lawyers to see where you actually land. Finally, I think morally, being as open as possible, even if you don't have to, by the letter of the law, is what this city needs. And had we been able to communicate these views at the beginning, maybe that would have influenced how people voted. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next we have Chandrea Emerson.
Hello, I'm Chandrea Amerson, and I am of Hennepin County. I live in Brooklyn Center, and I have epilepsy. A lot of people don't know about epilepsy. It's a seizure disorder. When I have seizures, I have them in my sleep. I am unaware. I become unconscious. I have my daughter here. She is 7. I had 3 seizures in March, and I have taught my daughter how to call 911, which I thought they were going to protect me, help me. However, that is not what happened. I have been living in my home in Brooklyn Center, which is Hennepin County, for 8 years, and so has my child. On this day, I had 4 seizures, and the police had came to my house 2 times, one in the morning, 5 p.m. at night. I was unconscious. My daughter, she knew exactly what to do, thank God. She called 911 right away, and unfortunately, a lot of things had happened. I didn't know until I had to wait about, I would say maybe 30 plus days to get some footage that I requested the next day. With that being said, I heard, I think the city clerk say something about how we can ask and request for information. I reached out to the chief, there's the commanders, the officers. I still haven't heard back from anyone. So it's very interesting to come. This is my first time attending one of these meetings, so it's very interesting to hear what you guys have to say over there on that side, and also this table as well, because you see a lot of different things, but I got attacked. I got beat up. I got arrested in handcuffs. I got scratches all over my body. My child had to get put out of her house. I was also unconscious. I didn't know what happened. I was in a post-ictal state of mind, and I'm still trying to find out who I can speak to find out. I thought these police were here to protect and serve me. I'm scared to call the police
You are
now.
at 2
And
minutes.
so I want to know, who do I request these emails to? They've been giving me wrong telephone numbers, sending me back to Brooklyn Center and back here to this building.
You are at 2
So thank you
minutes.
very much.
So next up is
you.
Michelle Hoffield.
Hi, my name is Michelle Hofelt, and I am a resident of Phillips Neighborhood, Ward 6. So who's my Ward 6 person here? Or are they here tonight? Okay, awesome. Thanks. I just wanted to say that there's going to be extreme, deep frustration. I personally have no idea. I can't see a difference between this committee and the former committee, the defunct committee that came before it. So this is the CCPO, that was the PCOC. The city didn't appoint new members, so then they didn't have a quorum and it was impossible to meet. I don't know what prevents the city from doing that to this body, so that they can't meet. So I would love to see a guarantee of that, because even though, it was in the law, they couldn't meet, they couldn't even do the work. And then you don't have the power to change policy or to investigate cases, right? You just review and you send it back to the police department. There's deep confusion about that. But then coming to this meeting and seeing the struggle to function. It's been since May, since you were appointed, and you don't even have emails. That's, it's non-functioning, and it's been a long time, and really, yeah, unacceptable. Absolutely, I agree with that. So there's deep frustration there, and there's deep skepticism that you even have the power to do anything. But absolutely, if we feel like we can't even talk to you, if we feel like you can't even form committees, or that the city is, sort of this going back and forth all the time just about procedural stuff, and we don't even get to studying cases or looking at the pattern and practice of racism, which now the Minneapolis Department of Human Rights put out that report, and what has changed? Ricky Cobb II was killed. Techley Sundberg was killed.
You
what
are at
has
2 minutes.
changed? So that's deep frustration. I organized with Twin Cities Coalition for Justice
You are
for
at 2
Jamar
minutes.
and with the Minneapolis for Community Control of Police. So somebody
You
had
are at 2
mentioned
minutes.
that groups might be invited to work with you, educating you, community groups about community control of the police. I want to see that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And last up, we have Angel Bachelor.
Hello, good evening. By the way, my name's Angelique Bowmaster. I'm sure quite a few maybe seen me before, maybe haven't. How you doing? I'm doing pretty good. Anyways, I'm here for,
If you have to
I'm
get
here
kind of
for,
close to the
let me
mic.
see, 10 million different reasons. I don't know how many people live in the city of Minneapolis. Not exactly sure. Maybe one of you people know a number.
I'm sorry, are you asking how many commissioners live in Minneapolis?
People live in Minneapolis.
Oh, yeah, 500,000.
400,000, half a
Yeah.
million plus. That's who I'm here for. So I'm in every ward, all right, just to let you guys know that. But anyways, my main thing I'm here to say is, I heard a while back that, all Minneapolis police officers, and this will go back like maybe 3-5 years, are supposed to have a yellow card. It's a good card. It's a positive or a negative on their routine or the call that they had. And I'm wondering why none of them know this. That'd be something you guys could bring up. That would be number one. And be number two, thank you guys for what you said, because that was very excellent and awesome. And my last and final note is, let's please, how much time do I have left? What?
About 40 seconds.
40 seconds of complete silence on how the disarray of Minneapolis in general is showing their residents. It's unbelievable.
Thank you.
That's all for public comments.
Thank you for the public comments. And the final item on our agenda is adjournment, and we are adjourned. Our next regular meeting will be October 10th at 6. We are not adjourned.
Could I have just one thought? I'm really hearing a lot of frustration about not having access to our emails. Could they go maybe in the minutes or something like that? Just something to get it out there, because
Yes, we can put them. We can put the emails in the minutes. If they could be added, maybe.
so identify us by email in the
Okay.
minutes as well as our
No. I mean to share with the public.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
To share with the public.
If possible, yes.
So the emails is very simple because they all have the same line. First name dot last name at minneapolismn.gov.
Yes, what
Any
she,
city employee,
speak into your mic,
any
please.
city employee, first name dot last name at minneapolismn.gov. It's the same for everybody, so you can find any city employee or anyone with the email with the Minneapolis email. So if you know the names of the commissioners on the website, then it's the same thing. First name dot last name at minneapolismn.gov. Our
That-
names are online. I would assume that everyone would want to
I don't believe
email.
we shared pictures to.
I believe
with-
that everyone, if they want to reach the commissioners, they'd want to reach the entire commission, but if you want to pick one, but yeah, I don't believe there's pictures online.
There's not
yeah.
pictures. I've not provided a picture of myself, so. But I will still ask if the emails could just be, maybe up at the top where the commissioners' names are, if you could possibly put in parentheses out next to it, their email address, or some kind of, whatever is easier. If they could show up on the minutes, that would be great.
Yes, I can do that, and I can put their wards as well, if that's helpful.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to ask if, yes, our email should be public. Yes, I'm for that. I'm wondering how we are going to work with responses and response times. Because I do feel like, although I do feel like the committee was a little misleading on how much time this committee takes, which when we start doing panels and trainings, originally we signed up for once-a-month meetings with a couple hours panels. And then now with having to respond to the public, I'm here for that. I think that's great. I'm Jennifer Clement, Ward 5. But I am wondering then, if then are we going to table I don't want the community to leave with the idealism they're going to get responses. I'm asking if we can maybe table or get some emails about what a proper response time would be. I just don't want to leave people hanging, but I also don't want to commit to
I
having to
understand what you're
respond
saying, and right now,
with that many
the only thing I could say is that would be something for the Rules Committee to try to figure out when they come together.
I know it's not time for the public to speak, but what about putting a statement that says, all of the commissioners are volunteers, please respect their time, on the website when you put the emails? I'm not planning to send you all a bunch of email, I have no interest in that.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And as commissioners access their emails, you can, at this point, we don't have anything in writing about what your response time to be, and I honestly would hesitate to do that. But for any public that is watching right now, please do take into consideration that this is not any of these commissioners' jobs, and it is a volunteer. And if you would extend grace and act with patience, I am confident that if you email them, they will email you back. I can't tell you they're going to email you in 24 hours, 48 hours.
We don't expect responses. We can make, we're just making suggestions.
Okay, thank you. Is there, Commissioner Alwood?
I mean, I wasn't frustrated so much about the fact that I can't email you right now. It was just an indication to me. If you're still talking about how to get an email address, that you're not doing the substance.
Thank you. If I could, thank you. If I could just respectfully get back to trying to adjourn, we have Commissioner Alwood and Commissioner Newman would like to make
I just wanted to make a suggestion for the housekeeping rules as far as meeting norms. I don't know if you guys all felt as frustrated or uncomfortable with some of the exchanges that happened today. And I just want to be honest and fair with ourselves moving forward. You know, it's a simple rule. Let's just probably leave it for the chair to really select somebody. And when there's back and forth stuff like that, it really makes this whole commission look unprofessional. And I don't think it serves us well to get our points across that way. So if the commission can, you know, think that through as we come back later, and maybe here the chair can add that as something that's explicit in the meeting norms, that don't speak until you actually are called upon by the chair.
Thank you, and that there is a line about that.
Yep. I stand corrected.
But thank you for pointing that out.
I just want to make sure that we collectively think about that through. And I'm not calling you out here, Commissioner. I just want to say that because, you know, the hostilities is really not in our best interest, nor is it in the working relationship that we're going to probably have moving forward.
Thank you. Commissioner Newman, did you?
Yes, since we're just discussing emails, just was trying to see if there was an opportunity for just a general email to be created to allow the public comment for those that are not able to be present, as well as if there is something in there, you know, maybe create a space within the agenda that you can quickly, you know, as chair, just give a quick little synopsis of whatever that email reflected, who it came from, and just to identify that, and that could be potentially in the beginning as well, but to still have the verbal for people who are present to remain at the end, but just since we're creating emails, an opportunity for that small space for public comment to be sent via email.
Thank you. Can I ask you if you will send me an email with that suggestion, because I am 100% going to forget what you just said. Thank you. Seeing no further desire to comment, our meeting is adjourned. Our next regular meeting will be October 10th at this location. And I want to thank all the commissioners again for hanging in with us till the end of the meeting, our guests, and OPCR staff for your assistance tonight. And I will see you at least on October 10th, maybe before. Good night.